Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to True Wealth. I'm Dave Basconi, and here in the studio with me is Maria Smith. Good morning, Maria. How are you doing on this chilly morning?
Doing well. Warm inside my home, so it's not too chilly. I was out earlier today, though, and it's New England weather for us.
Yeah, it sure is, and I think maybe we're lucky. If you don't like snow, then we're in that part of the New England that doesn't get as much snow as some of the other areas. But I like snow, but I guess on my terms. But my terms aren't always given to me. I
exactly.
Like
yeah.
Yeah. My terms would be to, wake up to a nice white snowfall. And then when I have work to do, the snow would somehow magically just disappear. But I haven't figured that part out yet.
Or as one of my children says, snow every place except roads, driveways, and places we don't want you to snow.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's kind of like the old thing about it never rains on a golf course. For people that love to play golf, they would love for that to be true, but not the case. So.
Right.
But, we can talk about a few things. Actually, I have a story that was told by our priest at a homily a little while back that I think kind of ties in with what I think we're seeing already. As we drive around, my wife pointed out that it seems like Christmas is starting very early for people. It seems that a lot of decorations were out already, even some before Thanksgiving. And her comment was that people are just ahead of schedule compared to last year or years past. And have you noticed that? Have you seen more, in quotes, Christmas activity regarding decorations and things?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe it just there's pressure. I don't know if it's the commercial thing about Black Friday always is the catalyst that gets everybody thinking and jumping in that direction. But anyhow, this story that I heard, let me share it with you, and maybe it kind of reflects on we should think about what Christmas is all about, and it's not just the decorations. But it goes like this. A tourist visits the mansion of a wealthy, wise man. He enters expecting to see it lavishly furnished. He's surprised to see only 3 pieces of furniture: a table, a chair, and a bed. He asks the wise man where all of his furniture is. The wise man responds with, "Where is all of your furniture?" The tourist says he is on a journey and cannot bring it with him. The wise man then says, "I'm on a journey too." So that hit me pretty good when I heard it the first time, and I think it might relate too, that we're on a journey and we think we can bring everything with us, and maybe we collect things that get in the way. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. We do collect way too much. And right now, in the history of our world, I think that people, especially in the more advanced countries, have way more than they need, so much more. We are attached to this world, I believe, in a way that's never been in the history of humanity. And the reason I say that is not because, our Lord Jesus Christ came 2,000 years ago, and before that there were many pagans, barbarians, and even, it's not so much a belief in God per se. It's that we are so attached to this material world, we've drifted further from God or any sense of a supreme being or the transcendent, the supernatural. We have even people who believe in God, who say they believe in God, who attend church services or Mass for Catholics. Even many of them really don't live as if God really and truly exists for most of their days, for most of their time. We are just so attached to the physical stuff. And the consumerism, the materialism, those are real things in our world. So yeah, we do. I see that. We don't believe that we're on a journey. We think we're at the destination and we're going to get as much of the goods of this permanent home, or we think is our permanent home. And obviously nobody really believes that, because deep down, I'm saying deep down, obviously even just common sense. Everybody's going to die, but people do suppress that, and it's like, oh yes, I'm going to die, but it's not for a long time. And then when people get old too, I've noticed that some elderly people still can't let go, because if you've lived your whole life hanging on, clasping to possessions, acquiring more and more, when you do get elderly, it's very hard for some to let go.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this attachment to things is really, a distraction. And if you believe in good and evil, God and the devil's getting his way pretty well. I think all of this, and I agree with you that we probably have never been able to collect more material things in the history of the world as what we have today, because of the technology. Plastics make things cheap, and they just opened up a whole new arena for being able to acquire things. Cars these days have plastic parts. You go out and you buy a fairly expensive lawnmower, it has plastic components. So, then that goes into the toy industry. When I grew up, I had a lot of toys that were made out of metal. These days, those same toys, they look the same, but they're plastic. So, and they're cheaper, and the pile just gets bigger. But once again, I think unless someone stops and really thinks about this, finds that quiet moment about how they should be dealing with all this material that's in front of them, to me, you should draw a line, and on each side of the line you put helps me or hurts me, and that's with respect to your life, your faith in God, your faith in what's going to happen in an afterlife, in the supernatural. And if you're very honest and you write down what goes in each column, you might approach things a little differently than if you just keep going along with the culture, because I think the culture has one agenda. It's operating in the one column, more is better, and you can have it all. And unless we put the brakes on, I don't think that's going to happen on its own. It's sad, but I think that's where we are today.
Yeah, and what you said about being on a journey, if everybody really viewed their life as a journey from one place to another place, that they would really make decisions based on that instead of making decisions that this is their permanent home. And that would just change everything. And, it's very easy for all of us, myself included. It's so easy for me to become attached to things. I don't like too much stuff. That's basically just the way I am, but I still get attached to what I do have. And actually, even though I don't like too much stuff, I'm just comparing myself to the average person in America. I still have way too much stuff compared to people, who live in other countries and other places, or who have lived before. Still, comparatively speaking, because I try not to buy more things than I need, but still I have quite a few things. And it's very hard. I have to remind myself, it's not an everyday thing, but it's really a battle that comes up more often than not. And I have to say, no, I can't be too attached. I have to be able to say, even if I were to lose this now, if I were not to be able to have it anymore, to be able to be detached from it and say, that's God's will. God will provide. And that's a really important way to be. But most of us, especially in this modern world that we live in which we think that we are really in charge, with the phones, with the online shopping, oh my goodness, it seems like we can have just about whatever we want, and with just a flick here or a click there.
Oh yeah, it's getting easier all the time. And, once again, the culture is pushing things in one way. Matter of fact, if you start thinking about a journey, we could probably maybe relate to it a little better if we were to say, okay, you're going on a journey, and now this is in the natural world, to a place where you're going to stay. And, it could be a long time. Just you're going to be there for a while. You would plan. You would say, okay, I need to bring clothes, I need to bring money, I need to bring all these other things depending on what I plan to do and what I'm going to need. So you would think ahead and plan out this journey. Well, why don't we jump to the supernatural? And what do you need when you show up there, as far as if you're going to stay? Once again, thinking not a short time, but what would you need to stay there? And shouldn't you be preparing for that and putting together that list and putting together that all those things that you're going to need? Because if you show up and you're short on a bunch of things, that may not work out so well. It would be the same going back to the natural. You show up, you got no clothes, no money, you just show up in the lobby, and they go, well, we'll see you. There's a bridge just 2 blocks from here. We understand it's pretty comfortable. It's pretty comfortable there. So, we need to be able to relate to this journey thing a little better instead of being distracted from it.
Yeah, I think that's excellent because exactly, and that's what we need to do. The thing is that with a journey that you're making to a place on land in this world and on this earth, it is a material thing. Nearly always, or at least that's the way people view it, the way people plan for it. Whereas our actual destination is a spiritual one. And what I've come across, what I've really learned, unfortunately, in the past, throughout my whole life in America, I've also lived in Italy as a child, but also as an adult for several years, teaching there. And I went back quite a few times to visit my relatives and friends. So I do know that culture pretty intimately. And it's a village. It's a smallish village, and it's a much more contemplative place where people still, even to this day, not as much as before, but they still do prize people who are contemplative, reflective, who think about things, and they still appreciate deeper conversations about many things, which I have not found in America until actually recently with my Catholic community, with my parish community, which I'm very, very blessed to have. But for many decades in America, it was really more of a superficial kind of friendship where people would do things instead of be together, to get to know one another more deeply. It really wasn't like that. So when you're planning for the spiritual journey, for our end destination, it's an interior thing. And if we're not used to being by ourselves and being interior with meditation and contemplation, if we're not used to being with other people in a more reflective way, speaking about what's deepest within us and exchanging who we are and listening to who the other person is, I don't find too much of that in America. I really don't. I find more doing. Let's go to a movie. Let's go to a show. Let's go to a sports event. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Let's go shop. It's so much of a doing, of an exterior, material way of life. It really lacks in the contemplative, spiritual life, which is not the case in all cultures, in all generations, but it is very much a part of our case in America. However, just to put a really positive spin on this, because there is such a lack of spirituality and of spiritual connection with ourselves, with others, and of course with God, people have a hunger and a thirst. And maybe even more, it's the young people, because they're growing up devoid of this spiritual life. And they are hungering and thirsting, and I think most of them don't even know what it is. But they are confused, lost, and there's such a deep hunger that if you can connect with them, it is a beautiful thing because they're thirsty for it.
Oh, yeah. No, I think you're right on with that. That when the pendulum swings too far to one side, it creates that void. And it takes a while, but I do believe that the young people are starting to ask, there's got to be more than this. The technology can only take you so far as being happy or satisfied. And maybe it takes a little while when they start to think in terms of having a family. What's my role as a father or as a mother, and how do I prepare for it? They start to get into some of the deeper questions instead of just asking, how can I have fun today? And I think that if there is someone waiting in the wings that can relate to that and let them set the pace, there is a process in which you can. Is that me or you?
That was me. I got a call. I got another call, but they just left a message.
Okay, but anyhow, there is a process, and one of the things I think it's a 3-step. The first thing you have to do is gain trust. And you don't have to do anything special, just be yourself, but other people witness how you live and how you act, and so they start to trust you. And then you get attention somehow. Again, this could be an encounter or something that just comes about. And then if they trust you and they're attracted to something that they see in you, that's when you can challenge certain things. You don't challenge people that don't know you, don't trust you, don't see anything in you, because then they're just going to see you wanting to cause trouble and argue with them. But if they come to you through this trust and attraction process, then you have to do it in the right way. Then you can start to challenge some of their ideas, and then they'll be open to some of your thoughts and some of your suggestions. I just thought, when I read that a few years back, I just thought that was, the right way to do it, and that's what's missing in today's, the political scene is just nothing but arguing. It's everyone challenging everybody else, and no one tries to get to the core facts or the truth and then start from there. Everybody just starts from their position. And when you have two very different positions, it just ends up being a yelling contest. So, I think what you said earlier about, there is a time, or the times are changing, and it can be for the better, for the good. I think that's the process, or one of the processes.
Yeah, that's great.
But okay, Maria, was there something else that we needed? You wanted to talk about today? Unless you have some other comments, I think we treated that one, gave it its due.
Yeah. I have some quotes from a book that we've used in the past with quotes from this wonderful holy man named Charles Rich. One of the quotes that he says is, "The punishment for not going to God is that you have to go to everything else that is not God. Happiness can only come from doing the will of God." I love that, because if you don't go to God for your strength, for your direction, for everything, then you've got to go to other people. And then you've got to either go to your relatives, your friends, your neighbors, doctors, experts in the field. What does this expert say? How can I do this? How can I take care of this? How can I take care of this situation, this problem? And if we go first to God, if we seek first God, everything else will be given to us. I don't know if it was you who said it in a previous show, or maybe I heard it on some show that I was listening to, that
if it was good, really good, it was me.
Of course. So if you do the first, if you put the first things first, everything else will fall into place. If you put second things first, everything is confused. Everything is lost.
Yeah, I think I've read that. Unfortunately, that wasn't me that said that, but I have read that, and it makes a lot of sense. You have to set your priorities, and priorities only come about when you spend that quiet time. It goes back to that list I was saying earlier about what helps me, what hurts me. There's so many ways to get to the same point, but your comment about being punished if you don't go to God first, you then go to everything else. You went down a list of people, all these different people that you would try to fill that void. But I think it also extends to things. People will bounce around through all these different groups, but then they start maybe looking for this happiness in things. So it's still just a lot of going nowhere. You think you're making progress only to find another dead end. And that also ties into what you just said. You got to put first things first. Then it all makes sense. Second things first just ends up, again, nothing but dead ends. And hopefully you run across that person that, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, that you're attracted to, you trust them, and then you start to have that conversation. And then if that person starts to challenge you about how you're doing things, I think some good things could come out of that because you're open. You know things are not good in your life, but they seem to be very good in this other person's life. So, and you want some of that. So I think it all, again, comes full circle.
Yeah, and it was very interesting what you said, too, that it's not just people, it's things. And that's very much the difference between, generally speaking, the difference between men and women. Women really view things very much from a relational viewpoint, and men view things more from the objects, which is not bad in and of itself. I mean, some people might say that's bad. Either one is bad. Unfortunately, sometimes people, look at women and say they're too emotional, they care too much about other people and all that stuff. And either one can be taken to an extreme, and men can be involved too much with things and to the exclusion of relationships and really avoiding any sort of deep relationships. So either one. So they're both very valuable, and that is the way that men and women really generally operate, with women really going towards people and having everything in their life revolve around people, going too much to people, whereas men will go to things like, what can help me here? What kind of scientific or medical thing can help me with this solution? Or what kind of financial solution can help me with this other situation?
Yeah. The guys like the big boy toys, they've which is a thing, and it's needed, and it can help with the chores and everything. But the guys do like their toys, big boy toys.
Yeah, well, and they're very essential, because some toys we get to live in and we get to drive, and those are pretty important. Without those things, I just, there's so much that's wrong with our world. I mean, it's actually, when I think of it, it just makes me laugh because it's so absurd. It's like, really, all the things that that a few very vocal, very irate people, mostly women, are saying all these negative things about men. And it's like, really? Men are these horrible things? the things that we have are due to men. And you know how the patriarchy and the white men and all that stuff are all horrible. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Where did you? I mean, it's really. I think it really comes down. Well, one of the things, perhaps the primary thing, it comes down to a lack of gratitude for everything we do have, and a focusing on things that we don't have and probably don't need, most likely don't need, and feel that many of us feel we're entitled to. Things are very important. We can't live in this world without things. We can't live in this world without tools, without food, without shelter. All these things are essential. So things are very important, but they're not the end-all and the be-all. And human relationships are extremely important, but they're also not the end-all and the be-all, because God is the end-all and the be-all. And when you have God, then your relationships with other people can be in their proper perspective, and things that you use in your life are going to be used properly. I mean, of course, you get all these problems. The pollution, all climate, everything is really revolved around taking God out of the picture, because obviously we should take care of our world. But, if you don't have God in the picture, then you're going to want more and more things that are going to cause more and more garbage and more pollution, because you just keep buying more things. And, and women, of course, do buy an awful lot of things as well. But they are more into the relationships. But anyway, so yeah, once you take God out of the equation, everything falls apart.
Yeah, for sure. Matter of fact, there's a saying, and this I think tends to deal with the collector or the person who's addicted to shopping. You cannot get enough of things that you don't need. In other words, the person who needs a few things, they go shopping, they buy those things, and they stop because I got what I need, whether it's food or clothes or the hardware store, whatever. I need this to take care of things around the house. I got what I wanted, and I stopped. The other person, they don't need most of the things they're bringing home, but they can never get enough of the things they don't need. So they're constantly adding to the pile. And I tell you, I see that often, and it's true. All the repercussions of what you were saying. We just got landfills that are just, if you were to scrape the soil off the top and look at what's there, you'd be amazed. Go to any company or a private country club and look at what's in the dumpster, what they throw out. It's amazing. I'm not picking on private country clubs. It's just that I've been there, but it's true for maybe hotels and any business. Just look at what's in the dumpster. Should we maybe think in different terms so that we're not putting all this in landfills? And I know this a little bit because one of my sons works for a company that's what they do. They manage these landfills, and they're massive. And you got to deal with them for decades after you cover them up. Just because you throw dirt on them and grow some grass doesn't mean that things aren't happening. They certainly are, and we have to take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, that's the one thing last thing I want to mention is that, and this has been in my thoughts for actually several shows. If you look at the title of the show, True Wealth, we open every show with true wealth. And that's what we really should be focused on. What is true wealth as opposed to this phony, this arbitrary, this artificial wealth that we seem to think is so important. And if you really get to the truth of true wealth, then I think God is in the picture and everything works out for mankind so much better.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That is so essential to really understand what true wealth really is, and it's spiritual. All the rest, all the material will pass away, and we cannot take it with us. Yes, we can hand it down to our children or to good causes. That is true, and that's what we are required to do. But we cannot take it with us. So let's look at everything that we have with a detachment, a holy detachment. Something I found rather that I wanted to speak about was that because people are getting so fed up with so much that is crazy in this world, so much PC, so much error, so much of people, you can't even say anything anymore, that people get on you, they get offended, you can actually be arrested for saying certain things. It's ridiculous. But what people are doing is saying, I've had enough. I'm not actually I was looking at some of these YouTube videos of people who are just saying, I'm giving up on dating. I'm not going to date because it's just not worth it. And one thing that I found, without going too much into the dating situation and everything, one thing that I found is that instead of saying, well, this is what I believe is the right thing, they say, don't care. It's like they can't care in the proper measure, so they stop totally. Like throwing out the baby with the bathwater, like just saying, I'm amputating. I can't handle this, or I don't like this. This is too much for me. I'm just going to totally amputate it out of my life. Whether or not there is truth to it, whether or not it can be appreciated in the right amount. And so that's really important too, because holy detachment is not getting rid of everything you own. Sometimes God will call people to that, and people enter religious life and give away everything they own. But that is not the way that it is for everybody. For most people, the holy detachment, and actually even for somebody who enters religious life, even if they possess only their clothes or whatever, you can still become attached to certain things. You can become attached to your routine. You can become attached to your thoughts. So really, holy detachment is to be attached to nothing, but to view things with the proper viewpoint, with the proper position, and know that things are good and to be used and people are to be loved, but to have a holy detachment, to love God above all people, all things.
Well, yeah, there's that balance you were talking about. If during the day your thoughts don't tie pretty much everything you do to God, then you're probably going down that attachment road. And if you are thinking in terms of God and how these things play out, then you probably have that healthy balance where you're only using or dealing with things that you need, you're doing it in a proper way, you feel peace and joy, you're happy, and that's the difference. Again, draw that line, and on one side you put what hurts me, the other side what helps me, and just get to know yourself and be honest, and then follow the list. Follow your own good advice once you do that.
Exactly, yeah. And there's I love litanies. You don't hear too much about litanies nowadays. You hear more about novenas, but litanies are also quite beautiful. And there's one called the Litany to the Love of God, and in it goes through so many things. It's like a poem, It says, more than all my relatives and friends, I love thee, oh my God. More than, and I'm just paraphrasing now what I remember. I'm not repeating it literally. More than all the things in this world, I love thee, oh my God. So it just goes through so many things. How much more than, I think one of them is more than time and eternity, I love thee, oh my God. How our love for God should surpass everything and anything in the visible world, in the invisible world, more than the angels and saints. I love thee, oh my God. Some people actually have we know about the New Age. They have an attraction or a devotion, if you want to call it that, to angels. And again, angels aren't greater than God. And I've known of some people who have devotions to saints, but to God, the Blessed Trinity, the Holy Trinity, God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, they don't have an affection for, a love for. They have it more for the saints. So more than all the angels and saints, I love thee, oh my God.
Yeah. No, that's, once again, there's that recognition of stacking your priorities, even though it sounds like it's a good thing, and it is in its proper place. angels and saints in second place and God in first place is the proper order. If you reverse that, then it's not, you're not going to get the same result, I don't think, because you're starting off with, foundation isn't the right foundation for having that relationship. So, all of this is very important, why it's an everyday vigil.
Yeah, and actually I just thought of it, too. This is one thing that many non-Catholic Christians accuse Catholics of worshiping Our Lady because they think or that we put her above God, which is absolutely not what we're supposed to do. God is above, way above all creatures, except that Our Lady is the highest of all creatures, but she is still not God. And one thing that I heard that I just came to my mind, the reason that some non-Catholic Christians believe we worship Our Lady is because they have a different way of worshiping. For them, worship is reading about, singing about, and like talking about in their sermons. And that's what we do. We do, and homilies can be about Our Lady, and we do sing songs to her. But that's not the Catholic way of worship. We're honoring Our Lady. We honor people, saints and angels. But the Catholic way of worshiping is through the sacrifice of the Mass and the receiving of Holy Eucharist. Catholics see worship differently from non-Catholic Christians. I think that's part of why so many Protestants, so many non-Catholic Christians believe that Catholics worship Our Lady.
Yeah, and anytime I get into a discussion, not that I've done that often, that's one of the first things I look for. And that way, if you can talk about that and straighten that out, then maybe it opens up things for more of a dialogue as to what other things do you think Catholics believe in that's just not true. Sometimes I'll ask, where did you get your information? Well, I don't know. I just heard it or I read it. Well, okay. So that's when I say, well, most of what non-Catholics believe about Catholics is misinformation. It's simply not true. So let's talk about that a little bit. And that's when you have that conversation and set things straight. Do it little by little, and maybe they will take on a different perspective. But I agree with you. That's the case, I think, that we're dealing with. But Maria, how are we doing on time?
We are at the end we're at the end and a little and over our time, so it's time to end.
Oh, okay. Well, it went fast. A lot of good topics there, and they could all certainly be explored more. So let's close with a prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen. Stay warm, Maria, and have a good week.
You too, and God bless everybody, and happy Advent. We have started a new year, right, in the Catholic Church, the new liturgical year.
Yes, we
May everybody have a very fruitful Advent. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.